Alright, today is October 18th, 2019. I am interviewing World War II veteran Nodia Jumpp, and this is her story. So can you tell me when you got into the nursing school?
Where did I go to nursing school?
Yes, and
Marshalltown, Iowa.
Okay, so how long was the training?
We went 3 years.
Okay, so
I don't think they go that long now, maybe.
okay.
Not sure.
So when you got done with training, when did you get sent over to Europe?
I can't hear him.
When you graduated from nurses training in 1943, you joined the Army and met my father in a military hospital in Clinton, Iowa.
She remembers better than I do.
And he got discharged and came back to Indianapolis. And when he got back to Indianapolis, he decided he wanted to marry her. So he came back to Iowa before she shipped out, and they got married. They knew each other only 2 to 3 weeks. And they were married for 56 years.
Wow.
And you want to talk about going overseas, where you went?
About World War II?
Yes.
Well, we were in England and Scotland.
I don't know if you want me to help or...
Yeah, you can help if you want.
She was stationed in England most of the time, but then in Scotland, it was a hospital. It wasn't right on the battlefield. They came there after to kind of recover and get shipped home. She was chosen to be in charge of central supply, but she had to take her turn at night duty, which she hated, and they worked 12-hour shifts 6 days a week. You had 1 day off. And she's told me that there were 3 wards that they were responsible with on night shift. I'm not sure exactly how many patients were in each ward. Do you remember?
Oh, probably 40.
So they were really responsible for 120 patients at night. They had what they called ward boys that for each one, but she would be the only nurse. I'm not sure what you did at night. Did you have to give them medicine? Like antibiotics and pain medicine, I suppose. I'm a nurse too, so
morphine?
Huh?
Morphine?
Did you use morphine back then, Mom?
What?
Did you use morphine back then? Morphine for pain, you remember?
Yeah, I think so.
And penicillin, they had penicillin back then.
A
A lot of penicillin.
Penicillin just kind of came in.
Yeah, that was kind of new then.
Okay, so I heard you helped with D-Day.
Well, she remembers the planes flying over that day. They didn't know what was happening. They just knew there were a lot of planes flying over, and afterwards, of course, then they realized what had happened. So they were close to D-Day.
What did you thought the planes were doing?
What did you think the planes were doing on D-Day? You didn't know, or they'd have air raids and they'd have to get their gas masks and stuff like that. And she talks about having to put the patients under their beds. That was the only thing you could do to protect them, I guess.
Yeah. So you helped with casualties on the beaches in Normandy?
No.
Oh.
No, she wasn't actually there.
Okay.
She wasn't in the beaches in Normandy.
No, she wasn't on the beaches, but she would have received casualties.
Oh yes, I'm sure you received casualties. Yes.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, casualties from the beach.
You received some of the men from Normandy that still lived. Yeah.
How many men did you treat after invasion of Normandy?
Do you have any idea how many patients came after that? How many patients came after Normandy? I suppose it was really, really busy though.
Okay.
That's been 70-some years ago.
Yeah. So what did you do after D-Day? I mean, with helping?
Well, they just gradually sent people home, and then the war ended in 1945.
Yes.
After Japan was bombed, correct?
Yeah.
And then they had to get all the men sent home before they could leave, of course. Mom got home in November of 45. I was born in September of 46. She was home 10 months.
She didn't need to talk about that, did
All right. Okay. So where were you when Pearl Harbor happened?
What?
Where were you when Pearl Harbor happened?
I can't remember.
That was before you went in the war. You were in nurses training, I suppose.
That was in 41.
Yeah, she was in nurses training.
Did you remember treating any paratroopers on D-Day from injured
Did you remember
paratroopers?
paratroopers?
I remember them, but I don't remember much about them.
She remembers interesting things like black people had separate units
Yes.
back then, and one time they brought in a whole unit and they had food poisoning. It was they had eaten spaghetti. Do you remember? You told me that many times. They were so sick.
It was about what?
The food
Why don't you
poisoning.
sit over here, I can't hear you.
Oh, dear Lord. The men that got food poisoning, you talked about that.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing, which is probably inappropriate, but they had a venereal disease ward and a whole ward of these men that had venereal disease, and of course they gave them antibiotics around the clock.
You know, I can't hear you.
Well, you can't hear me either.
No.
I'm talking loud.
What were you telling
About
me?
the VD wards.
Oh, yeah, we had lots of BB.
Isn't that awful?
Okay, it happens.
It does. I mean,
What did you say?
that happened. Anything else?
What else do they want to know?
Well, whenever you can remember.
Did you see any generals?
Did you ever see Eisenhower?
Did you ever see Eisenhower? No, I think so. I think
He was her hero. She loved Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Didn't you?
Yeah.
You didn't see like Patton or Bradley?
Was he Patton or Bradley? Do you remember them? Patton or Bradley?
I don't remember them.
Did generals come and visit?
Did generals ever come and examine the hospital or anything? Inspect you?
Did they ever what?
Come and inspect you?
I think so.
You don't really remember.
That's been a long time ago.
When you worked in Central Supply, did you work 12-hour shifts then too? Suppose you did.
What kind of injuries did you see?
What kind of injuries?
What kind of injuries? Well, all kinds.
The one, she still, when she talks about this, she still gets tears in her eyes.
Yeah.
They call them the basket cases. Do you know what that is?
No.
Their arms and legs are all gone.
Oh, okay. Now I know what it
And
means.
it still worries her. She wonders what happened to them, who took care of them when they got home, and
Yeah.
that would be awful.
Yeah, because D-Day was a bloodbath.
Yeah, you've seen Private Ryan.
That was, yeah.
Everybody should see that movie. Private Ryan. Private Ryan, the movie.
Saving
It's
Private
about
Ryan.
D-Day. Saving Private Ryan. I think you and Dad went to see that on your anniversary one year.
No, I can't remember all. I'm a poor one to interview. I can't remember everything.
It's alright. You're doing good. Well, did you ever get attacked by German planes?
Did you ever have bombings? They never bombed the hospital, did they?
they weren't supposed to bomb hospitals. I don't know if they ever did.
But were there any close ones? Like bombs coming close to the hospital?
What?
Were there bombs close to the hospital that you know of?
Well, yeah, sometimes.
Was this all in Scotland?
England, most of the
More
time.
in
And then when she went to D-Day, it was France.
What'd she say?
France? Okay.
You were never in France, were you? They just flew over
Oh,
from
wait,
England
no.
to D-Day, I think.
They brought the...
We were stationed in England.
Yeah.
But they brought the soldiers
Yeah.
from France to England.
Right.
I think, she talks about it was the best years of her life. I mean, I think they had some fun. They were young and not especially afraid, and
Yeah.
Was she by herself, or did she have a friend with her that went to training?
she did have a friend that went too, but they were in separate
Units.
different hospitals. But I think there were, how many in the barracks where you lived?
I think we had, was it 30, 15 on each side?
Of the barracks?
I think it was.
And they remained friends till they died. I mean, they met every year for reunions, and they're just like sisters when you go through something like that. So, weren't you?
I think you're better to let them interview you than me.
That's
What
okay.
was your rank in the Army? Your rank?
My rank?
Yeah.
I got to be captain.
She was a second lieutenant, and then she was a lieutenant, and then she was a captain. How much did you make a month? Do you remember?
What?
How much money did you make?
$180, but I don't remember
$180 a
when that
month?
was. I think it increased. As you went up in rank, you'd probably get $20 more a month. A long time ago.
$180 a month.
How did she get over to England and Scotland?
What ship did you take when you went to England?
What?
What ship were you on when you went to England?
That's Queen Mary.
Queen Mary, and then on the way back, what ship?
Elizabeth.
Queen Elizabeth on the way back.
I do remember that.
How long did it take?
Hmm?
How long did it take?
I tell
But it was like a week, or probably,
Yeah.
was it like a week?
Can't remember if it took that long.
Okay. And what'd you think when you saw the Statue of Liberty?
What?
What'd you think when you saw the Statue of Liberty?
What did I think of?
When you saw the Statue of Liberty,
That was wonderful to see.
after you'd been gone for 2.5 years?
Did you help any British soldiers?
Did I what?
Did you ever take care of any British soldiers? Or were they all American?
Can't remember. I think they're mostly American.
Okay.
You let the British take care of themselves.
Did you get seasick going to England?
Seasick on the ship?
No. There was a lot of them that did go. I never was.
Oh, that's good.
You had fun, didn't you?
What?
You had fun, didn't you? Did you have patients on the ship when you came home?
Let's see, can I remember that?
Or was it
I
just
think
the
so.
nurse? Did you?
I think so.
You just took them with you, huh?
I'm not a very good one to interview. That's been so long ago I can't remember. What else do you want to know?
Was your husband in World War II?
Dad was in World War II, and he got rheumatic fever, and they discharged him.
Oh.
And he was in the hospital for that when they met.
But did he do any action or no?
No, he wasn't in that long. He was supposed to be a gunner. Probably a good thing he got rheumatic fever. He probably would have been killed, but that wouldn't have been a good...
What?
He probably would have been killed being a gunner.
Could have been.
So he was in the army?
He was in the they called it Army Air Force
It was
back
the Air
then.
Force
Or the
before,
USAAF.
Oh.
He didn't really have a separate Air Force.
Oh.
but he got really sick.
So, he came back to Indianapolis and worked at Allison's, I think, while Mom was overseas. He made the engines for the planes. Is that what they do there? The
Mechanic.
transmissions or something.
I think you're better one to interview than your mother.
You have any other questions? Password.
Were you armed? Did you have a weapon?
You didn't have a weapon, did you?
No.
You had a gas mask.
Yeah, yes. We carried those with us everywhere.
Huh.
Yes.
And you had a lot of, what was it you had a lot of to eat that you didn't like? Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
Brussels sprouts.
Oh, I guess Brussels sprouts. We had those every day.
What else did you eat?
Huh?
What else did you eat? Didn't you say there was feathers and something, the chicken or something?
Yeah, the chicken, they didn't clean the feathers off the chicken. I guess the guys that worked in the mess hall didn't worry about that.
What else did you eat?
What?
Did you have dessert? Did you ever have dessert?
Dessert?
Mm-hmm.
That's been a long time ago. Let's see, I suppose I can't remember.
They gave them cigarettes and canned Hershey bars every week. They gave you candy bars and cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
And Mom would trade her candy bars and give the corpsman her cigarettes.
What are you telling her?
One of the corpsmen or ward boys would take your cigarettes and they'd give you their candy bars.
Yeah. Yeah, the Milky Ways, I always remember that.
But a lot of the nurses smoked, didn't they?
What?
A lot of the nurses smoked. A lot of your friends smoked cigarettes.
Yeah. Did I?
No, you never did. I saw you try to smoke and you never inhaled, so I don't think you ever
I said I
smoked.
never inhaled, so I didn't smoke.
But
What else was there?
Aiden, do you have something else for you?
I'm thinking.
Why did you decide to join the Army?
What?
why did you decide to join the Army?
Well, because it was the thing to do.
Her dad was in World War I, and I'm sure they came around and tried to recruit you, didn't they?
Yeah.
They tried to recruit me for Vietnam, too. I didn't go, but
Did everyone join the Army or military?
What'd you say?
how many people in your class joined the military?
How many what?
In your class joined the military? No.
Oh, I can't
It
remember.
was you and Ruth is all I know, but
Ruth and I did. I can't remember who all
okay,
went.
I never remember you talking
Yeah.
about anybody
Can't
else.
remember.
It's alright.
What else?
They did your laundry for you, didn't they?
Hmm?
They did your laundry, cooked your food, even with feathers on it.
Feathers on it.
And the eggs weren't good. You always talked about they were powdered eggs or something. I don't know what that is.
Do I?
Powdered eggs?
Yeah, they were awful. You ever had them?
I can't say that I have.
No, me either.
They picked them and they wouldn't get them stirred up, you know, and you'd get the,
A big hunk?
I don't suppose those guys that worked on the ward boys cared about whether we ate or not.
Were they-
How many of your patients didn't make it, passed away.
I don't know, Chad.
Was
Were
it-
there very many?
We always had a critical ward.
Oh, you did?
And how many of them didn't make it?
I don't know, Chad.
You don't know?
Did they try to send them home right away if they could?
Yeah.
As soon as they could make it? Did they
Mm.
fly them home, the real critical ones?
What?
Did they fly the critical patients home?
I think so.
Well, that's a good thing. I didn't know you had a critical ward. Did you ever have to work in the critical ward?
Do I ever?
Uh-huh.
I worked in Central.
I know, but on night shift, did you ever have to work in the critical ward?
I think so.
Uh,
I think we had 3 wards in the night. That's a long time ago.
And they weren't allowed to walk, you had to walk outside to get to the next ward, and one of the ward boys would have to walk with them because they weren't allowed to walk by themselves.
What did you say?
The ward boys would walk you to the next ward
Yeah.
because you weren't allowed to walk by yourself.
weren't
I don't know what
supposed to be
was
out
going to
alone.
happen to you, but
Yeah, never know.
I guess.
Does she have pictures of herself on her?
She does. You want me to run up and see if I can find
No,
one?
no, I was just curious if she does.
She has some.
What?
You have some pictures of when you were in the war.
Pictures of what?
Of the war. Do you want me to run up and see if I can get them? I can run up there real quick unless you're in a hurry.
No, you're. No, go ahead.
Do you remember what they asked her on TV? You remember, Tina? Oh yeah, how you met your husband. I told you about that.
Why was she there other than being a nurse? She was a nurse in that hospital?
I think they kind of had basic training or something.
Nurses training?
They had to march, and stuff like that to kind of learn the military rules and stuff. Is what I'm assuming. Is that what happens in Clinton, Iowa? Is you kind of had basic training, how to be in the Army and what to...
Basic training what?
When you were in Clinton, you worked in the hospital, but was it kind of like basic training? You said you marched.
Yeah.
What else did you do? Did they tell you the rules of the military, or
Did they what?
tell you the rules of the military? I'm assuming that's what it was. And then she was shipped out from there overseas. I'm not sure how many weeks she was in before they shipped out. Several weeks, I think. Long enough to meet my dad and fall in love, I guess.
Isn't that something?
What else?
She really didn't work as a nurse that much after the military. She was a school nurse for a while. But out of the military.
Yeah, I was school nurse. What else you want to know?
But she worked in the bank and she did income tax. She didn't really, it was a real small town, so there wasn't that much to do. She used to give what they called hypos to people in town that were having, I suppose, cancer. She'd give them pain medicine, and she had her syringe that she sterilized, reusable needle, and...
Whoa, are you serious?
Yeah, he's a nurse too, so...
They would reuse needles?
Of course.
Wow,
That's it?
that's crazy.
You reuse needles.
Hmm?
You reuse needles. We did it, Dr. Taylor's office too. Kinds of improved that.
That's just,
Her syringe is somewhere. I still have it. The glass syringe.
that's insane.
Where are you a nurse, Jen?
Right on the street, Scarborough.
The nursing home.
Yeah, this generation, there's not very many of them left.
Not very many of you left. How many did they say die every day?
Over maybe 300.
Wow. How many are left?
Very many.
How many?
several hundred die every day, World War II veterans.
I wonder when my number comes up now.
Were you worried about having to go to the Pacific?
You were thankful you went to Europe, though.
Yeah, we were glad we
Because the nurses in Japan and those places, they weren't
Yeah,
treated
they were
well.
captured.
Yeah, they weren't treated well in Japan.
Japanese didn't treat anybody well.
No, it was awful. So, I read something today, I don't know how many nurses lost their life in World War II, but there were 8 in Vietnam that died. 8 nurses.
What?
I was just in Arlington Cemetery.
Oh,
2 weeks ago. There's a section for nurses.
is there?
Huh.
I didn't know that.